Hey there, fellow classic comic collector. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I have got a store visit unlike any other. The weirdest store visit I think I'm ever going to do, because today we're traveling to the year 2102, the post-apocalyptic future after the bombs have fallen, to visit a comic book store in Appalachia. Yes, gamers might know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the game Fallout 76. And in the game Fallout 76, there's a comic book company that had printed comics before the war, and you can run around finding those comics. And so naturally, when I started playing the game, the first thing I did is I started collecting the comics, of course. You know, I've been really busy making my comics, working really hard on the fulfillment for my comics of Crime Buster 6 and quest number 3. It's a lot of work. And so for my downtime, I started playing Fallout 76. And the way I relax from the stress of making comics and the real world is by, of course, collecting comics in a virtual world. Yes, I'm doing the exact same thing in Fallout 76 that I actually do in the real world, which is I collect comics. But also in Fallout 76, you can build a camp, you can build buildings, you can create a little village or whatever, which is the way I've chosen to do it. And so pretty quickly I decided what I really want to do is build a comic book store where I can collect all the comics and then set up a comic store so the other people playing Fallout 76 can visit my comic store and buy the back issues that they're missing. And since I started playing Fallout 76, which is about 5 weeks ago, I've spent all my time in the game collecting the comics and getting things to build a comic book store. And I finally have a complete run of all the comics I've got all 10 issues of Grognak the Barbarian. I've got all 5 issues of their superhero series, The Unstoppables, and I've got all 13 issues of the sci-fi pulp magazine, Astoundingly Awesome Tales. And I've put together my comic store. So I'm going to show you the comic book store. I'm going to show you my complete runs of Grognak and Unstoppables and Astoundingly Awesome Tales. And you're going to get to see all of that here. Now, one benefit of making my own virtual comic store is here's a store that I am in fact able to show you the interior of. So outside the store is my little village that I'm in the process of making. It's not done yet, but it's a little seaside resort. Although in this case, the seaside is actually a radioactive puddle where a lake used to be before the dam was blown up by an atomic bomb. So it's not the best seaside resort, but I've got a little boardwalk. I've got some like carnival games that you can play. I've got a little tavern you stay at, a little hotel. You can get popcorn. You can get hot dogs. Actually, the hot dog cart sells cans of dog food, but just it's a post-apocalyptic future. You'll eat whatever you can get. But most importantly, we've got Comic World, which is the comic book store that I created. And I've decorated the outside with some posters. I've got the Astoundingly Awesome Tales movie poster, which is based on one of the issues we'll be seeing later. I've got the Unstoppables poster. I've also got a poster outside for the Silver Shroud, which in this universe is sort of, it's like a radio drama, kind of their version of The Shadow. And then inside the store, now, if you go online and look at other people's comic stores in Fallout 76, I'm certainly not the only person that's done this. There's people that have much more grandiose and elaborate and cool-looking comic stores than mine. I've only been playing for 5 weeks, and the limitations I have is that there's people that have been playing for 5 or 6 years that have had access to all sorts of cool comic book store stuff that I just don't have any access to because I missed it. But I managed to get some of the older stuff, most importantly the Hubris Comics wallpaper, Hubris Comics being the name of the comic company in the game world. I've also got the official Hubris Comics comic book racks for the comics to sit on. And in addition to the comics, I wanted to have this be like a fully functional comic store where you go for all your geeky needs. So I've got a bunch of other stuff in there too. I've got a bunch of little miniatures, which are like figurines of different robots and stuff in the game, different plushies you can get. I've also got a display case with some classic video games. There's several video games you can collect inside the game. You can actually play the game within the game if you want. The cartridges look um, like I'm blanking on the system, but they look like vintage cartridges from like the late 90s or whatever. I've got a display case with those. I've also got all the board games that you can get in the game, like Blast Radius and the Unstoppables board game, which is based on the superhero comic. And I have a vendor machine set up where you can actually buy all of this stuff. So I have multiples of all the comics and all the magazines. I've got all the board games for sale. I've got the video games for sale. I've got everything that you would want. So for anyone who's in a post-apocalyptic wasteland in Fallout 76, you can come to my store and get it. So let's actually show you the comics now, because there's kind of some fun things about the comics. A little disclaimer before I show you the individual comics is that when you pick up the comics, this really cool high-res image of the comic comes up on your screen, and there's some really fun covers and some really cool artwork and stuff. Once you have it and you look at it in your inventory, it's a much lower resolution picture. So unfortunately, you can't really see all the cool details that I was able to see when I got them. But I'm going to go through my inventory. I'm going to show you the complete run of Grognak, complete run of Unstoppables, and I'm going to show you the complete run again of Astoundingly Awesome Tales. So let's take a look at those now. First, we're going to start with Grognak. Here's issue 1 of Grognak the Barbarian. I wish you could see these a little bit better, but as I said, the resolution is really low. So even if I blow up the picture, you can't really see it that well. But as you can see, these issues are all done to look like Conan. Obviously, the logo in particular is obviously Conan, but the whole design is basically Bronze Age Conan. And what's really cool is that some of them are referencing specific Conan stories. So I think we're about to see issue 4 here, and this is called something like In the Embrace of the Pirate Queen. It's clearly a reference to Belit and that whole storyline in Conan. It's got much more of a romance cover, but still really cool. And then we have issue 5's got a cover where there's a genie, so it's not 100%. But for instance, here issue 6, this is kind of cool because it's about the Maiden from Mars, and it's got a very Robert E. Howard feel. So they're sort of going back to the pulps. It would be cool if they actually had comics available so you could read some of these stories. I would love to read these 10 issues of Grognak. But so here's another one that's you can't really see it very well, but this is about the Ice Maidens, and this is clearly a reference to the Frost Giant's daughter, which is one of the most famous Conan stories, particularly from the comics. So it's really cool. I mentioned earlier, like I don't have in my comic store yet the Grognak posters. They just announced, like right after I recorded this video, that they're putting them back in the stores. So like if I had waited another 3 days to record this, I would have the posters, which might give us a better look at some of these covers. But this one has issue 10. It says "What sorcery this?" So I just love that. Then we have their superhero series, and there's 5 issues of Unstoppables. This has a very different design. It's a much more modern design. To me, the way the covers are designed and the logos and the corner boxes, it's actually a very sort of like late 90s, sort of like early 2000s sort of look. This is a group of superheroes that includes Grognak, so I guess it's sort of like that Savage Avengers run that had Conan in it. It's also got this character here you see on the cover of issue 3, which is Manta-Man, who's sort of their version of Aquaman. One thing that's super frustrating is that in the universe there's a third comic book series. Besides Unstoppables and besides Grognak, there's actually a series called Manta-Man, but you can't find any copies of Manta-Man that haven't been destroyed by the nuclear bombs. I don't know why none of those survived, but everything else did. But you can find burnt copies of Manta-Man, but no unburnt copies. So I have in my store available some burnt Manta-Man comics, just because they say any grade is better than no grade, so I wanted to have some of those available for people to buy in the store. Then we have our pulp magazine, a sci-fi pulp, Astoundingly Awesome Tales. Here's this is like based on a famous cover. This has got it's Attack of the Fishmen, and there's a fishman who's carrying off a woman. It's based on a really famous pulp cover, but I am afraid I can't really remember exactly what it is. But all of these have sort of great pulp feels to them. Rise of the Machines. This is about robots, and one thing that's fun is that a lot of these stories reference things in the game. There's more stuff with the fishmen. So like, there's a Fishmen movie poster you can get, and I think there's actually a giant billboard for the Attack of the Fishmen movie. And there are these like mutated fishmen called Mirelurk Kings. The Mirelurk King is like a fish man that comes up out of the swamp that you have to kill. Here's that issue there, issue 3 with the aliens. Again, there's another movie poster that I showed earlier that I have on the wall. And then this one here, the Gorilla, issue 5 has the Gorilla cover, which is a great reference to like all those great Gorilla covers from DC. And they have events and stuff. So like the Alien cover, for instance, the aliens from that story actually come down and attack, and you can fight against them. This one's called The Man Who Can Stop Time. I'm not aware of any references in the game to that guy, but there may be, because a lot of these, like I said, there's actually things in the game where you can find and interact with this stuff. So it's really fun. This one's got a robot cover. It's about the mechs. This is sort of an adventure cover with a guy and his dog in a canoe. It's very reminiscent of some of those old adventure comics covers. And again, the one of the mechs, like it's you can actually wear those mech suits in the game. Here's a cool cover about a Western heroine. For some reason, I find that cover a lot. Like that issue, I found a lot of copies of it. Here's one about the zombies that you fight, which aren't really zombies. They're people, the scorched. They're people that have been sort of mutated by this disease into these zombie people. Giant insects invade. It has a very cover that's very much feels like the famous cover of The Thing. I think it's Thing 16 from Pre-Code Horror. And then here's the thing about people being mutated, which of course is in the game. You fight the giant green mutants. One other series I want to show real quick, which isn't like it's listed as a magazine. It comes up as magazines, but it's actually not a magazine or a pulp or a comic. It's actually a series of young adult teen detective novels. It's called Tales of the West Virginia Hills. So it's a lot like The Three Investigators, or like my comic series, The Crime Buster. So I wanted to show these. You can see that they're actually books, like Nancy Drew sort of books. They're about the different cryptids that you find in the game. So there's one about Sasquatch. There's one about the Beast of Grafton. There's one about the Mothman. The Snallygaster is a creature that you fight in here. I said Sasquatch, but it's actually in this game it's a sheep squatch. And then here's one about the aliens again, which is called I think it's the Flatwoods creature or something, but it's aliens that you end up fighting. So that's it. That's my virtual collection, Fallout 76. That's my little comic book store that I've been making. Even though I have complete runs of everything, I'm still spending my time in the game running around getting even more of them. There are still a bunch of older things for the comic stores that I don't have yet, so I'm still trying to get some of those. Sometimes you can request them, but I have to earn like currency in game. So there's stuff like I have Grognak's axe on the wall. I have the trading cards. I forgot to really talk about those, but you may have seen it when I was showing my store. I showed the set of all the trading cards, so you can get those. But there's other stuff, like there's a life-size wax figure of Grognak. There's Grognak posters and Grognak plushies. I don't have any of those things yet. And several other things. So I'm hoping to at some point be able to get some of those older things, either by requesting them when they come back around. But that's it. That's my virtual comic book store, Comic World. So stop on by if you're ever in the post-apocalyptic future. I play on PlayStation. Drop by if you've managed to find me on Comic World, and pick up all of your post-apocalyptic comic needs. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time.